serving in the veterinary college, Pondicherry. Are you able to hear me? Is it clear?
Yeah, go ahead.
Echo is coming. Ma'am.
Hello? Hello?
Ma'am, please, ma'am, now you
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Am I audible to everybody? Am I audible?
Very much audible, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So anyway, we'll start the sepsis topic. Actually, I presented it probably some 1 month ago. And some participants, some people could not attend from different states of India, right? So they said that they wanted to make it again. So they requested for this sepsis in dogs. Probably it's a very important topic for the practicing veterinarians. Probably very useful. So they said probably you can make it again. So because of their request, so I'm making it again the same topic. Probably I've introduced 1 or 2 cases additionally. And this is just a beginning of sepsis in India. Naturally, I can say that we are not worked so much on sepsis in dogs. Probably this is only preliminary studies that we are making it. Probably for the years to come, we will make it a little well developed, and we will be very perfect on our treatment also. Okay, so with this beginning of this thing, I will just start with my PowerPoint, right?
डायरेक्ट मालिक से ले लीजिए, मालिक से कहिए कि ठीक कंट्रोल लेंगे कराना तो आप लोग तो आप लोग पेन पे कुछ भी फॉर्म लीजिएगा। हाँ, और चाकू भी नहीं मिला क्या तुमने किए?
Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So sepsis in dogs. Practical tips for vets. Basically, the professor and head of veterinary medicine of River, and we have worked a lot of cases of sepsis in dogs in Puducherry region. So I made some of the probably some of the slides are based on that, for the ready reckoner and for the for explanation sake, I made some of the say some of the cases that you have seen in practically in the wards. So the basis of the sepsis, what is sepsis? Is it dangerous? Sepsis is potentially a life-threatening condition caused by dysregulated host response to an infection. So it's not an easy thing that we can do with sepsis. It's a little problematic thing only. So we have to be a little cautious whether this patient is going in for sepsis and what exactly we can do for sepsis, because it's being a life-threatening condition. And in this particular sepsis, it is going to release some mediators in the body system. Okay, this inflammatory mediators, which we commonly call it as the cytokines, which is going to attack the body itself. When it is going to fight against an infection, this is actually basically being released to fight against an infection. Sometimes what happens, these cytokines attack the body itself and causes deleterious effects or very severe effects on the body system, and sometimes it can cause death to an animal also. So this sepsis is basically considered as an emergency, right? So when you going for a sepsis, previously you should know what exactly is the local infection and the systemic infection. So before going deep into the sepsis, you should know exactly what is the local infection. Local infection is some damage to the cutaneous vasculature, cutaneous system, where there is some breakage in the body system. Okay, so this will be cleared by the local inflammatory reaction. So there will be a rhubarb, that's a redness, dolor, pain, and lot of vasculature comes to the particular area, that heat will be produced, and the inflammation will get cleared off by automatically by itself also. So this is okay. So this local infection automatically get cleared off with the local inflammatory reaction. And sometimes what happens is this local inflammatory reaction, that is the, say for example, any infection at the particular site can translocate from the particular site into the body system also, and enters into a systemic and can cause a systemic infection also. Very rarely it can cause a systemic infection. Suppose we get it cleared off in the local area itself, there is not going to be any problem. But at times it can enter into the systemic, that is into the blood, into the vasculature, into the body system. It can cause some reactions and can produce a systemic inflammatory reaction, which can cause deleterious effects or detrimental effects to the body system. Okay, that's why I have made it as local infection versus systemic infection. Right? Systemic infection is dangerous. That is when the organism enters into the body system, it is going to react.
Ma'am, just ma'am, please, please, will you share the screen, ma'am?
Yeah. Are you able to do?
Ma'am,
Can you see it?
Screen, ma'am. Screen.
Yeah, can you see it?
Ma'am, your screen.
Just a minute.
Ma'am,
PowerPoint.
when you're doing a presentation on this, your screen, ma'am.
Are you,
PowerPoint not seen.
just a minute. Huh? Are you able to see?
Oh, ma'am.
Yeah. Just a minute. Just a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you able to see now? Are you able to see it?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. You can see, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, now seen, yes.
Can you see it now? Can you see
Yes,
it?
ma'am. Very well, ma'am. So I hope.
Yeah, okay.
Ma'am.
Yeah. We'll continue it. Okay. So local infection versus systemic infection. Locally, when there is any problem to the local system, it gets cleared off by the local inflammatory reaction. And systemic infection is that when the infection enters into the bloodstream and it is going to cause some reaction to the infectious agent by the release of certain chemical mediators, which we call it as the cytokine. This cytokine sometimes attacks the body system itself. Very rarely it can attack the body system and can produce a particular condition. We call it as the sepsis. Okay, let's go deep into the sepsis now. So small animal sepsis. What is the present status or scenario in India? Epidemiology of sepsis is poorly described in dogs and cats. The studies are very little. We can say it's very remote in India as well as in the whole of the world also, because a lot of work are being going on in human studies. But of course, in dogs and cats, it is they're poorly understood, and we don't have much data on sepsis also. And it's likely to be a major cause of mortality, especially in dogs and cats when it gets affected. Not only in dogs and cats, it can affect in any other animal species also for that matter, because we speak about dogs and cats. We can say that when the animal enters into a state of sepsis, we need to attend to it at an early stage itself. Otherwise, mortality can be a little major outcome will be the mortality. And India's systematic study on sepsis in animals is almost in a primitive stage. We are working out on that, and we have to come out with a lot of results about sepsis. What exactly is sepsis, in which condition we get into sepsis, and all that to be really understood, and a lot of work needs to be taken up also. Okay, now I already told you that infectious agent enter into the bloodstream. I said there is going to be the release of inflammatory mediators because it's going to fight against the infectious agent. Right. When it's going to fight against an infectious agent, through what means? It is going to release some mediators from the body system. This inflammatory mediators, we call it as the cytokines. Okay. Are these cytokines the cause for sepsis? Is it good or bad? Definitely, cytokines sometimes can cause sepsis. Okay, let's see whether it is good or bad. First, to look into whether it is good or bad, we should know what cytokines are. So this infectious agent, say a bacteria or a virus. So now we have the COVID-19. Okay, we get into a lot of problems related to COVID-19 also. So when this virus or the bacteria or the rickettsia, say E. canis, or the protozoan, babesia, anything of that sort, when it enters into the body system, they are capable of releasing. They have a molecular pattern inside it, which we call it as a pathogen associated molecular pattern. We call it as a PAMP. Very good example for PAMP is the lipopolysaccharide capsule of the gram-negative bacteria. Okay. So lipopolysaccharide capsule of the gram-negative bacteria is one of the important pathogen-associated molecular pattern. And this, when it is having that particular pattern inside any infection, this will be immediately recognized by the host receptors. And this receptors, what it is going to do is that, it is going to release the cytokine. This cytokine, we call it as the inflammatory mediator. This will be secreted by the macrophages and the monocytes, right? And this is going to initiate your immune response. This cytokine is going to initiate your immune response. This immune response is maybe a humoral immunity or a cell-mediated immunity. Okay, this immunity, we call it as the cytokines, which has been the main reason for the immune response. When there is an optimum cytokine signaling or the release of cytokines, this is going to fight against the pathogen and which eliminates the pathogen. Okay, this is what exactly happens with the cytokines. So cytokines, when it is optimally released, it is going to signal inside the body and it's going to eliminate the pathogen. This is how the cytokines are going to be helpful. Let's see the next slide. Okay. Physiological response to infection. So I already told you that when an infectious agent enters inside the body, it will be felt by the system and it's going to release cytokines. So let's see when there is an optimum response to the infection by the release of cytokines. When the release of cytokines is optimum, when it is good, so that is going to cause a release of pro-inflammatory mediators and anti-inflammatory mediators. You can see this pictorial representation. You can see the pro-inflammatory response and the anti-inflammatory response. See, when there is a balance, for any infection, when it's going to enter the body, we are not going to collapse immediately. Right? Now, the body system is trying to fight. How it is going to fight? It is by the release of cytokines. When the cytokines are released in a very optimum fashion, that is the pro-inflammatory. Pro means it is going to promote the inflammation. Anti is to so stop the inflammation, right? So when it is optimum, when it is balanced, that is the most important pro-inflammatory cytokines or the interleukins 1 beta, TNF alpha, interleukin 6. These are the most important pro-inflammatory cytokines. And on opposite direction, we have this pro-inflammatory cytokines. That is the interleukin 4, interleukin 8, and interleukin 10. Okay, so we have this pro-inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory cytokines. When it is in a balanced fashion, now there is a tissue recovery. Automatically, the tissue is going to be recovered. We don't show any signs also outside. There is no clinical manifestation. Even though when there is clinical manifestation, it's automatically going to become all right. And the animal is going to recover out of this infection. That's what usually happens. Even now, the COVID-19 patients, many patients are asymptomatic. That means they have a pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory response in a very optimum fashion, which is in a balanced fashion. So when it is in a balanced way, it is going to fight against the infection automatically without any treatment, or if that is treated also, it is going to give a very good response because the body system is functioning in a normal fashion. That we call it as the optimum response to the infection, which is good with a good release of cytokine, or probably the optimum release of cytokine with the pro and the anti. This particular point, I think you should make it a point that cytokines are pro and anti. So we need to be very thorough with this aspect also. Let's move on to the next slide. When there is an erratic response, so when the body system, sometimes, they react too badly. Right. Already I told you that even in the last section, I told you that when a burglar comes inside, okay, immediately the youngsters, immediately they respond so much in an erratic fashion. They want to fight against the burglar. They want to fight against the thief. They want to kill him. Like that it happens, So erratic fashion, when it responds, when the response is too bad, when they fight and they don't have any arms, the thief can even kill the person inside the home also. So that is the erratic response which happens, which is very bad, uncontrolled response by the body. We do not exactly say which body system is going to function in a very bad fashion. We do not know. Even with the COVID patients also, some people erratically behave to that, and sometimes they go for a mortality also. Okay, they collapse because of that, because of the release of the excess release of the cytokine. This cytokines, mainly the pro-inflammatory cytokines, this arrow mark is here, So it is an upward direction. Pro-inflammatory cytokines, the TNF alpha, interleukin 1 beta, and then interleukin 6. When it is being excessively released inside the body system, which is a pro-inflammatory cytokine, sometimes the body system affects by the cytokine release and can cause very deleterious effects or detrimental effects, or sometimes immediate mortality also. So that is the erratic response to the infectious agent when it's being presented inside. Okay, that's an overreactive response. We call it as an erratic cytokine signaling. That we call it as a cytokine storm. When there is a maladaptive cytokine release, excess release of pro-inflammatory cytokines when compared to the anti-inflammatory cytokines. So that is a self-attack by the inflammatory mediator, which the body system is out of balance, and it's going to cause the damage system to different organs. The most important organs which is going to be affected by the release of this excess release of cytokines are mainly the lungs, which is going to cause an acute lung injury. It is going to cause an acute, see the lung is getting affected, which is causes initially an acute lung injury. And the next step is the acute respiratory distress syndrome. And at that particular point of time, the patient usually collapses. Okay. Next is the clotting factor deficiency. Clotting. So the body system cannot clot properly. And sometimes there'll be bleeding from the different sides. Or sometimes over-clotting also sometimes happens because of the over-release of the pro-inflammatory cytokine. And sometimes there'll be a brain death. And sometimes there'll be a liver failure. Many systems get inflamed and failure, which we call it as the multi-organ dysfunction syndrome because of the cytokine storm, which is an hyper-inflammatory response to the presenting pathogen, that is the infectious pathogen which has gone inside the body. So when it is optimum, it is going to cause recovery. When it is going to be more, it is going to cause death to the patient. Okay, next, move on to this. So this is only a pictorial representation when it is an SE or organized traffic. Even though lot of traffic moves under, it is going to be in organized fashion, they are going to reach the destiny. But at times when it is dysregulated, the traffic is not controlled properly. So naturally it is going to cause chaos, it's going to cause accidents, it is going to cause all these dysfunction in the room. So this is a very important how we can relate to the sepsis. This is how. So now, the most important thing, everybody have got an idea that only the bacteria are cause for sepsis. It's exactly not the cause for sepsis. It's not the only cause for sepsis. It is also the other pathogens which can cause sepsis in animals as well as in human beings. The most important being the viruses, the rickettsia, the leptospira, protozoans, and the fungus. All these infectious agents at any point of time can produce sepsis. For example, viruses, this COVID can cause sepsis. Rickettsia, the most important rickettsial pathogen of dogs is the E. canis, the Ehrlichia canis in dogs, which is going to cause sepsis in animals. Okay, and next is leptospira, very common pathogen in animals which is not been vaccinated for the annual vaccines with lepto. You know, many animals succumb to leptospira. Also, the most important protozoans of dogs which is causing sepsis at different points of time. We don't say exactly all protozoa is going to produce at any point of time. At some point of time, it can produce sepsis, which we call it as a protozoal sepsis, mainly caused by Babesia canis and Babesia gibsoni. This is the most common protozoan which is causing infection, which is causing sepsis in animals due to this protozoans. And next is fungi of least importance, but of course, at times it can cause sepsis in animals. Now let's see the most common cause for sepsis associated, that is the diseases associated with sepsis. Most important diseases, the bacterial enteritis, mainly caused by Salmonella E. coli. This is a food-related pathogens which can at times cause food poisoning and can produce sepsis in animals. Many at times it can cause, and even the gram-negative pathogens also, mainly the Clostridium species of organisms can also produce sepsis. And next is parvoviral enteritis. I will just show you some of the few slides wherein the parvoviral enteritis can relate to sepsis also, and how well we can diagnose the sepsis in animals related to that. Next is urinary tract infection, is a cystitis, or sometimes the pyelonephritis can cause sepsis in animals. It's not usually the lower respiratory, lower UTIs, it's the upper UTIs which can cause sepsis in animals, especially the dogs. Next is pyometra in bitches. If the animal suffers from pyometra and it's not been really attended to, where there is no, where we are not removed uterus, you know, at times it can produce sepsis in animals. Also, canine erysiosis, canine babesiosis caused by gibsoni and canis, leptospirosis, where there is this pathogen associated molecular patterns are being released and can produce this particular sepsis in animals. Post-surgical peritonitis. This is usually happening with surgeries. When abdominal surgeries is a major surgery is not being performed properly, you know, there is translocation of bacteria from the abdominal cavity into the system, and which is going to trigger the release of inflammatory mediators, and it's going to produce it in animals also, if not being done properly. If aseptic patterns are not properly followed, you know, it can cause a post-surgical sepsis also. Less common causes are all these, the pneumonias, the pyothorax, septic meningitis, arthritis, prostatitis, osteomyelitis. All these are the very least possible causes for sepsis. But of course, the commonly cause are only all these, the bacterial enteritis, parvoviral enteritis, and all this. Okay. Okay. Now, how to deal with sepsis? What is the minimum thing that we need to follow? A human now they have gone to the next step. Okay, but we are using this particular thumb rule for diagnosing sepsis. So these are all the vitals which we need to check it in an animal, where the animal is being presented to you in a little, say, in a little bad fashion and all that. You know, immediately we need to check for all these vitals. That is the temperature, heart rate, respiratory rate. These three are the most important vitals that we can do it clinically. We need not to have any lab testing and all that. You know, we need to have a stethoscope, we need to have a thermometer. Just like that, we can do the sepsis. Okay. Okay. So temperature, this I think you should, every veterinarian, you know, you should know the pattern, how to say that at one particular point of temperature, we can think of sepsis also. These are the all important parameters. That's the temperature, 103.4 in Fahrenheit, 39.4 degrees centigrade. And if it is on a lower side, you know, 99, 37.2. Always we should remember particular thing. And heart rate 140 beats per minute, respiratory rate 40 breaths per minute, and WBC say it is 5,000, and the higher side is 19,000. Usually, the dog should have a WBC count of 6,000 to 18,000. So if it is not been not within the limits, you know, if it is less than 5 or more than 19, then definitely it gives a worry, a picture where we should target that animal is going in for some problem. And band cells, what are these band cells? They are nothing but the immature neutrophils. So this population in 100 cells, we are counting for 100 cells. That is the DLC picture, the differential leukocyte count. In that, if you find more than 5 band cells, that is the immature neutrophils. If you find more than 5, 3 to 10 is a normal picture. If it is found more than 5, then it gives some indication or clues that the patient's life is something in danger form. Okay. Then is the capillary refill time. We need to check the capillary refill time by everting the upper jaw, and we can check for the capillary refilling time. The normal is 2 to 3 seconds, and if it is slightly altered, if it is less or more, no, that gives an indication that it is going in for some problems. So these are the important. At least some deviation of these three, any of these three, any deviation of these three of any of these parameters, then we can have some idea. Okay, this animal is going in a little bad shape. We need to immediately attend to. So what I stress upon the practicing vets is that we definitely have to check the temperature. Without taking the temperature, we should not proceed the case at all. And heart rate, of course, many times we miss it also, but definitely if a patient's life is a little terrible, we need to check for the heart rate as well the respiratory rate also. If all these three are having some alterations, immediately we need to collect the blood. We need to check for the WBC picture. Now the labs, specific labs for veterinary have come up, so easily we can make a blood picture and we can find out the WBC count as well as the band cells. But what we have to do is specifically we should write for the band cells. Band cells are the immature neutrophils. If you find more in the circulation, then that animal may be having some worried picture. That it is having some problems with the infectious agent. Okay. Next slide. So now, what are all the stages of sepsis? What are all the important stages of sepsis? We should know. This is the early phase. See, this animal is in the early phase of sepsis. It's not acting. It's looking little normal only. Okay. And severe sepsis is organ dysfunction. If some organ is getting dysfunction, say liver or kidney, some organ involvement is also noticed. Suppose there is respiratory distress, there is severe nasal discharge from the patient, then we can say that okay, lung could have been affected. Okay, that we call it as a severe sepsis. Then multi-organ failure is the 2 or more organ dysfunction. Suppose kidney is affected as well, liver is affected, or liver and brain is affected, heart and lung is affected. Any 2 or more than 2 organ involvement, we call it as the multi-organ failure. So how to do this? All this is we need to collect some samples or endoscopy, not exactly endoscopy, it is ultrasound or X-rays. Will be giving a very beautiful picture whether organs are involved or not. Even at minimum ECG at least is essential. Next is septic shock. Even after you give lot of fluid, volume resuscitation, that hypovolemia is not being getting cleared. It is not getting dehydrated. We call it as a septic shock. We call it as a septic shock. Oh my God. Clear all drawings. Yeah. Okay, so we have different severity in the sepsis, severe sepsis, multi-organ failure, and the septic shock. Okay, coming to the different stages, how to find out? As a clinician, we should know whether the patient is in the early stage or in the mid stage or in the late stage. So what are the parameters as a clinician at the bedside of the animal can look for? Immediately we should ask whether the animal is eating or not. Sometimes partially the animal will be having some appetite. It will eat some choosy foods. It will be choosy for certain foods. That we call it as inappetite. If it is not totally eating at all, that is anorexia. And usually in the early phase, we call it as a hyperdynamic phase. That is, it is fighting against the infection. We call it as a hyperdynamic phase. And hypodynamic phase is a late phase where the animal is surrendering to the infection. That is, the animal is not able to cope up with the infection. Animal is almost in the late stage of the infection. We call it as a hypodynamic phase. So with the stage of the infection, automatically the signs of the animal also varies. It will have inappetence here. It will have anorexia here. Okay, the animal will be slightly dull. Here, the animal will have a altered mental status. Sometimes it becomes recommend. It will be unconscious. It will be erratic also. Sometimes behaving little erratic fashion also. It will be having severe pain in the body because the entire body is inflamed now. So it will have an altered mental status. And you have to definitely look for a temperature, increased rectal temperature here. That's already told you that it will be more than 39.4 degrees centigrade. Here it will have a low temperature, probably 99 or 98 or 97. Okay, so this gives you a clue that whether there's having a problem or not. Next, coming to the important point is the mucosa, that is the conjunctival mucosa. Please look in for the conjunctival mucosa. If the mucosa is a brick red mucosa, we call it as the injected mucosa, then it is little bad. I will show you some of the pictures also. If it is pale to gray mucosa, it's almost in the late fashion of the disease, late stages of the sepsis. If it is pale, dry and gray, and the animal will usually have a high heart rate. Here it will have a high heart rate and hypotension. Hypotension here relates to the BP. That means the body system will become cold. It will be cold to touch. The extremities will be cold. The entire body will becoming cold. Okay. Bounding pulse, here it will be a beat pulse. We cannot find out a pulse at all. Here it will be bounding. It will be very fast. And we can hear from your, as you keep your fingers, on the femoral artery, we can check for the bounding pulse here. Tachypnea is increased respiratory rate. Abnormal breathing will be noticed. We have different abnormal patterns of breathing. Paroxysmal type of breathing or syncopic type of breathing, and different forms of breathing always in a different wave pattern. It will not have your normal inspiration followed by a expiration. It will have an abnormal breathing pattern here, almost very fast. You can see the body system moving little fast here. And CRT, that is called as a capillary refill time, it will be less than 2 seconds. It will be a delayed CRT because there is no blood flow at all. The peripheral, the perfusion, everything is getting affected here. No blood pressure. So when there is a reduced blood pressure, the CRT automatically gets delayed. And acute oliguria to anemia. That is, the animal will not pass urine or sometimes very, very little urine. This will be the stage of early to the late sepsis. So clinician should be very cautious how well we can think about whether it is the early stage or the late stage. Okay. Next, diagnosing sepsis, of course, is the basic one, the blood count. The blood, we need to collect the whole blood and check for the complete blood picture, including the thrombocyte count. Thrombocyte also should be given due importance in veterinary practice, especially for dogs, because in Ehrlichia and Babesia, there is a huge reduction in the thrombocyte count also. So always look for the thrombocyte picture also when you are sending your blood for the analysis. Serum chemistry, of course, the total proteins, the albumin, the buns, the creatinine, total protein, the bilirubin, ALT, AST, ALP, GGT, all this plays a very major role in diagnosing sepsis. Hemostatic parameters, the prothrombin, partial thromboplastic time, D-dimers, and fibrinogen degradation products can also be checked for. But initially, we can check for PT and KPT. And then we can check for antithrombin and protein C, because these are all the high-level diagnoses which we are not doing at all in the veterinary side. Okay, it's all in the primitive stage. We are not doing all these tests. C-reactive protein, blood lactate levels, all these tests, usually we are not doing in the clinical practice. Activated partial thromboplastin time and PT, of course, we can do it in the laboratory setup when we have a lab in hand also. Okay, with this, all these basic about the sepsis, I will go in for some of the cases which we have seen in our clinics in Pondicherry, so that it will be having self-explanatory also, and we can have some idea about what sepsis is. Okay, this is the first case which I am presenting to you. This is a Spitz which is recommended. You can see almost unconscious. It is very, very dull, and a drip also. We are going on with the drip fluids also. So this particular 5-year-old intact female Spitz presented to TVCC in a lateral recumbency, anorexia, vomiting, of temperature of 99 degrees Fahrenheit, heart rate 152, respiratory rate 44, distended and slightly dense to lower abdomen. This clinical investigation is very, very important in your practice. Without that, you simply don't send samples to the laboratory. Okay, temperature is very important, heart rate, respiratory rate, and you have a very important notice about the animal also, slightly distended or tense to lower abdomen. So blood investigation gives you this particular picture of TLC. You see this TLC, 46,200 cells. I already told you that it is 6 to 18,000 cells, 6,000 to 18,000 cells per cubic millimeter is normal for a dog. But here you can see threefold rise in the TLC picture. And segmented neutrophils is 87%, and band cells is 4%, and lymphocyte is 9%. Usually neutrophils with the band cells, you see, it's almost coming to 91. But normal is only 65%. But here you can see a slight increase in the neutrophils. As well, there is a decline in the lymphocytes because this is relatively increased. And we can see the bun being 32 milligram per deciliter and creatinine is 1.2. As a practitioner, when you're doing a small animal practice, you should know some of the basic values also. Creatinine normal value should not exceed 1.4 milligram per deciliter. 1.4 is normal, but here it is slightly in a lower side only. But what we could find in this investigation is TLC is quite high, as well neutrophils with the band cells are also on a slightly on a higher side. Band cells is slightly higher, we can say within the optimum level, but neutrophils are high. This clearly indicates that it is having some severe bacterial infection. Okay, and the animal is also vomiting. So there is a drink vomit cycle. Animal drinks as well vomits also. It's a very important picture in a female animals, especially when it is in the old age. It is almost around 5 years, adult. Okay. So whether the animal suffer from sepsis or severe sepsis, we can say this animal is in the early stage of sepsis because the animals, bun, creatinine, all those values are normal, but of course the temperature of the animal is slightly on a lower side. This disease usually suspected here is the pyometra because it's a female animal and it's an intact female. So we can immediately suspect because there is a tensed abdomen also. What is a further diagnostic technique that you can apply here? It is ultrasound and the radiography which we can think of. How well the condition can be managed? We can do pan-hysterectomy. Okay, so this is the case which is being put on an ultrasound. We can find, you see, the uterus will be filled with the uterus being filled with pus. We can see the hypoechoic regions here. Okay, this is the pus that is being accumulated in this animal, and this is the uterus that's been removed after surgery. During surgery, you know that pan-hysterectomy has been done, and the uterus has been removed from this animal. So that is the best way. Removing the foci of infection is the best way of treating this particular animal. Okay, this is the second case. This is the second case, a Labrador, which is being presented here. You can see this Labrador. You see how the animal is forcing itself. Okay, it's having a lot of pain on the lower abdomen. Okay, so this is the 5-year-old female Labrador presents with the pollakiuria and stranguria. Pollakiuria is frequent passage of urine. Stranguria is a difficulty in the passage of urine. Okay, these are the important two signs that we notice in the animal: pollakiuria and stranguria. So temperature is 40 and the heart rate is 94 beats per minute. The respiratory rate is 34. TLC count is 27,000 cells. Neutrophils are 85. Band cells are 3. Pus cells, you can see the urine because it is being suffering from pollakiuria. Pollakiuria is frequent passage. Stranguria is difficulty in the passage. Immediately your thought should go to the urinary system. So immediately we need to collect the urine, or the next day also we can collect the urine, check for the pus cells, check for the bun and the creatinine. See these values, it is slightly higher. Creatinine value is slightly higher, 1.8 milligram per deciliter, and bun is 57 milligram. It is totally on a higher side. That indicates that the animal is not passing urine. So because of that, there is a entry of this bun and the creatinine into the bloodstream, which has caused the increase in these values. Whether the animal suffers from sepsis, definitely the animal suffers in the early stage of sepsis, and your diagnosis usually is cystitis and urethritis. So it is a lower urinary tract infection. And most important test for diagnostic confirmation is the urine culture with antibiogram. You collect the urine, send to the laboratory for the urine culture as well as the antibiogram. Urine culture will give you whether the animal is having some infection, what sort of infection. The most common pathogen which is being associated with the urinary tract infection is the E. coli. Escherichia coli is the most common pathogen, and we need to go for an antibiogram also. So we'll know what antibiotic can be chosen for this particular case. So your blood checkup and urine checkup in this particular case is very, very important. Okay, what is the treatment plan? So this particular case is being put on enrofloxacin 10 milligram per kg intramuscular for 10 to 14 days. We cannot give it for 5 days alone because it is being affected with a potent pathogen, and we need to treat at least for 2 weeks period. 10 to 14 days should be given. A 10 milligram per kg intramuscular can be given or post-operatively. Nephrotek is the Himalaya tablet. It's a natural one which can also be supported with when there is an urinary tract infection. NSAIDs, if there is a severe inflammation of the bladder, the bladder wall thickness becomes very, very bigger. The thickness, wall thickness will become much bigger. And also the animal will also have temperature of 40. So we need to put on NSAIDs, the meloxicam injection, and further we can put on tab. Oral antacids, if the animal is vomiting, we need to put on oral antacids. The most important one which we can use in the field is the urinary antiseptic. The most important urinary antiseptic, as by the veterinary clinics of North America, the 2015 edition, they have 15 publication, they have said that methenamine mandalate is the 500 milligram tablet. It is quite effective in case of urinary tract infection, which because this methenamine it gets converted to formaldehyde. This formaldehyde in acidic medium, it gets converted to formaldehyde. Methenamine will get converted to formaldehyde, and which is a bacteriostatic, which has got an antiseptic effect on the urine media, in the media of the urinary system. Okay. So this can also be used by the practitioners. It is available. It's only human tablet. It is not the veterinary tablet. It's a human tablet. It is available as methenamine mandalate. I've got a lot of prescriptions and the brand names for this, but this is the content of it. Methenamine mandalate as a urinary antiseptic. The other one which we can also suggest is the cranberry juice. This cranberry juice has got a marker compound, proanthocyanidin. It's an important active principle of this cranberry juice. Proanthocyanidin. This alters the expression of the fimbriae of the bacteria. I told you that E. coli is the common bacteria which is causing this UTI. And the E. coli has got fimbria at the ends. This tightly adheres to the mucosa of the urinary system. So this cranberry juice, this proanthocyanidin, the compound, which is going to prevent the adherence of the fimbriae to the bladder. So easily it can be removed and it can be flushed through the urine. If you give fluids as well as this cranberry juice with an antiseptic and all these treatment, it is a very good treatment plan for cystitis. Suppose you leave cystitis, what will happen? It can cause any time pyelonephritis, that is an infection of the kidneys, and can produce a death in some of the animals also. So you need to be very careful with your treatment plan also, because it's going to progress and immediately the animal can go in for the severe infection of the kidney. This is the third case which I am presenting here. This animal, this is a Rottweiler, okay, a puppy, a Rottweiler pup of 2.5 months or 3 months of age, which is not been immunized against the infectious diseases. And we can see, already I told you that the mucosa, the checking the conjunctival mucosa is very important for practitioners. We should never miss the temperature taking on the mucous membrane as well as the lymph nodes. These three are very, very important. Checking the temperature, checking the mucosa as well as the lymph nodes. Okay. This you can see an injected mucosa. This we call it as the injected. That means very, very severely congested, the reddish color. In photograph, we are not able to see it very clearly, but of course in the real case, we will see it very brick red color. That is like a brick color, you will find the reddish tinge of the mucosa. If you find any puppy see this animal also you can see. So the animal is dull, pubic on expression. You can see the animal is dull, depressed, anorectic. It had melena also, foul smelling melena. Vaccination was not done. You can check the mucosa. You see the mucosa, if it is congested, you have to be very careful with the patient. That patient has gone for sepsis. Could be in the early stage or in the mid stage or in the late stage. Okay. Checking the mucosa is a very important thing for any patient, any suspecting sepsis. So I am telling here that sepsis occurs in parvoviral enteritis also. Already I told you that it occurs in parvoviral enteritis. Why it occurs? There is disruption of the intestinal barrier. So it is going to target the crypts of the villi. Villi, bottom of the villi, that is the crypts of the villi, it is going to damage. When it is going to cause damage to the crypts of the villi, at any point of time, the bacteria can take up an upper hand. Right? It's caused by a virus only, but anytime bacteria can invade there, that particular point, because it is uh, more easily infected at the particular section because a lot of blood is there. So this bacteria at that particular state, it can translocate. What do you mean by translocation? Movement of bacteria from the intestine into the bloodstream or into the system. We call it as a bacterial translocation. Easily it can happen. So this is being analyzed by this mucous membrane. When you check the mucous membrane in parvo cases, usually lot of blood is being lost. It should be only pale color or it should be blanche color. But in spite of that, when you find an injected mucosa, then you should be very, very careful that this animal is going for sepsis. Why? Because this induction of SIRS, that is cytokine, are getting released. And this the most important cytokine release in dog is TNF alpha. And this TNF alpha release when there is a bacteria is more commonly seen with Rottweilers and Dobermans when compared to other breeds. That's why we say that Rottweilers and Dobermans are very severely affected in parvo, and sometimes it can cause mortality, very severe mortality in these two breeds because the cytokine released in these two breeds are too high. Okay, that's the reason for it. Next is aggressive supportive care. So what is that we can do with these patients of parvoviral enteritis? So we can use crystalloids and colloids. So whether to use first the colloids or the crystalloids. So always remember that in your practice we should first use crystalloids. Crystalloids are nothing but the Ringer's lactate or DNS or multiple electrolyte solution. All these crystals in the water, you call it as a crystalloids. That should be used first, followed by colloids. Crystalloids can be used at a higher dosage of 20 to 30 ml or 50 ml also, depending on the dehydration status, and followed by colloids. Now, what is the dose of colloids? Colloids should never be used in a high level. It should be used only at 10 ml per kg body weight. If the puppy is weighing 5 kg, don't use more than 50 ml. Okay, try to use only 50 ml, not more than that. So crystalloids and colloids are definitely useful because that's the most important support that we can give it for a puppy with parvoviral enteritis. So the most important crystalloid that's been tried is the Ringer's lactate. And we can give DNS also along with that as a support for some energy because dextrose provides energy, whereas Ringer's lactate doesn't have energy source. So both together will support some energy and also expand the fluid volume. Then Hetastats is a very important colloid that can be used for our practice. It's again a human preparation. We have got a lot of veterinary preparations are also coming in the market, but now we are using Hetastats used at a dose rate of 10 ml per kg body weight. Apart from that, systemic antibiotics are very essential. I already told you it is causing damage to the crypt of the villi. So combination of antibiotics. So what antibiotics can we choose? So we can choose cefotaxime with amikacin. Amikacin, that's a gram-negative pathogen. No, it is going to have effect on the gram-negative. So we can try combinations of antibiotics. Don't choose only one antibiotic. Choose combination of antibiotics if the animal is very severe. Okay, and this it is only empirical only. Your previous practice will have a lot of awareness about the use of antibiotics. With that knowledge, we can choose the antibiotics with your previous experience. You can choose the antibiotics, and combination will definitely work out instead of giving only one antibiotic. Don't say this is the very best antibiotic or that is the very best antibiotic. It is by your experience that you can choose antibiotic, and combination should have both for the gram positive and gram negative effect on the bacteria. And next is antiemetics. The most common antiemetic which is commonly being used in day-to-day practice is the ondansetron. So ondansetron is a very good antiemetic that can be tried. It's a neurokinin receptor antagonist. That is the ondansetron is dopamine antagonist, which we can try in the practice. And antacids or injectable pantoprazole and ranitidine. Any of these you can choose. And blood transfusion is definitely advised if the PCV level falls below 20%. Many times we usually don't give it, but if the PCV falls below 20, if you want to really save the patient, we can go in for the blood transfusion also. Additional care. So what is that? We can additionally give it. We can try with convalescent serum. When the patient is recouping or improving, any patient that's been improving from the parvovirus, no, like COVID patients only, we can collect the serum and we can give at a dose rate of 1 to 2 ml per kg IV. If the patient is weighing 5 kg, we can give around 5 ml to 10 ml of the convalescent serum. Collect the blood and clot it and harvest the serum, and we can use it at this. But usually it is not approved in veterinary practice, but definitely practitioners are also trying. Other one, human granulocyte colony stimulating factor is also been advised when the WBC count is going very down. See, this particular parvovirus is going to affect the bone marrow also. When it is affecting the bone marrow, this WBC, the white blood cells released from the bone marrow is getting declined. So we can use filgrastim for that, which is being tried in cancer patients. When we are giving cancer chemotherapy, automatically the WBC picture and all the pictures go down. So to improve that granulocyte colony stimulating factor, we can use this filgrastim. Oseltamivir is the Tamiflu, again the human-based syrup. That's a neuraminidase inhibitor. Now, what is the use of this oseltamivir? This can be used at the early stage. So this will prevent the translocation of bacteria from the gut into the bloodstream. That's the most important effect of this oseltamivir, neuraminidase inhibitor. It can be used at the dose rate of 2 milligram per kg per hour every 12 hours for 5 days. Okay, for 5 days. Once in, that is daily we need to give morning and evening oseltamivir. It's been available as syrup as well as tablets. But now syrup is slightly better when compared to the tablet because it cannot gulp the tablets also. Then procalamine, of course, it's not available in India, but it's also a very good preparation to supply the amino acids, glycerin, and electrolytes. Then enteral nutrition. Enteral means you are giving it orally. That is very important for intestinal regeneration. Many people will ask whether we can give it something orally. Orally, you can give, but only thing the product or the food that you're giving, it should be bland. It should not cause any much injury to the intestinal mucosa because it's going to regenerate, So what we are doing here in Pondicherry is that we are advising to give tender coconut. We ask them to strain it and keep it and give it in little quantities of say around 5 ml to 10 ml, not more than that. So that is giving a very good results for parvovirus treatment. Apart from that, we have got ParvoCure tablets also available in the market. It is been marketed by Sihil Pharma, and this is the anti-parvovirus chicken antibodies, which will act against the antigen. This is the early stage when you're giving it, is very good with once daily up to 5 days, and its cost of it is slightly higher. It is costing around 1,000 rupees per 5 tablets. So every day the cost of the tablet is 200 rupees. We can give it for 5 days. It is giving a wonderfully a good result for parvovirus treatment in puppies. And then this is the one which is not available in India, but very soon we may get it into India. This has been marketed by Zoetis company, Pfizer. And this is the only antiemetic available for dogs. No other antiemetic has been available for dogs. This is the one antiemetic available for dogs in abroad as an injection. Everything that we are getting is only the human source. Okay. And this is the Tamiflu, which is available as a syrup. Next is filgrastim. I told you that when the granulocyte colony stimulating factor to improve the WBC count. This is also quite costly. It's costing around 3,000 rupees. Then procalamine, I told you this is also not available in India, but it's a very good partial parenteral nutrition which supplements amino acids, the lipids, and the necessary minerals and the vitamins. Next is intralipid. This is also the human side. It's been available intralipid 20. parenteral nutrition, which contains soybean oil, egg yolk, phospholipids, glycerin, and water. This also can be given IV, and it is 2.5 ml per kg body weight, which can be given slowly and IV also. Immune boosters. This is the one which is being marketed by this Enchantrix Organica Private Limited. It is a very good nutritional supplement to boost the immunity for puppies which are being given vaccination or not without vaccination also. Daily we can give it. It's a free radical scavenger, which scavenges the hydrogen peroxides or peroxides which is being released from the body. It's a general well-being of dogs, and it's been containing dissolved oxygen, minerals, and enzymes and amino acids. So like this, we can follow it a dose in drops, small size, medium size, large size. You know, we can do it one drop in drops. We can give it just one drop only, and beautifully giving wonderful result with this immune booster that is by the Enchantrix company. Okay, there's a next case which is being presented here. So this is again a Labrador. You can see this. See, the mucous membrane appearance is very, very important here. We can see the mucous membrane. It is so pale and is so blanched almost. It is also ectric. We can see icterus mucosa, slightly yellowish tinge of the mucosa. And here we can see the urine also. It is almost yellowish color. Okay. So a male Labrador, 8 to 5 years, is presented with a history of anorexia, lethargy, bile, vomiting 2 to 3 times a day, melena, icterus, and high colored urine. We can find that high colored urine in the picture also. Vomiting 2 to 3 times a day, bile vomiting, that means yellow vomiting. And further inquiry revealed that dog missed its annual vaccination against infectious diseases. So this is the workout, the blood checkup in a laboratory. And the close picture we can see the WBC count, it is 42,000 cells. Neutrophils you can see 90%, and monocytes 2, RBC is okay, hemoglobin is also okay, fat cell volume is also okay, right? And the bilirubin you see, it is on a very high side. The normal picture is also given on the side, on the right hand side. It's very, very normal. Normal value is 0.1 to 0.5, but you can see many fold times of bilirubin levels here. Direct bilirubin is also very high. SGOT, that is the ALT is high. Sorry, AST is high. ALT is high. Alkaline phosphatase is very, very high values of the alkaline phosphatase also. And we can see the protein total. You see, normal value should be at least 6.5. 6 to 8 is a normal value. You can see a very low levels of the protein. Albumin is very low. Globulin, everything is on lower side, but these are all on the higher side. Which blood urea nitrogen you can see 107. Creatinine is 6.56. This clearly gives an indication that the animal is suffering from severe injury by an infectious agent, and almost this liver and kidneys are usually affected in this particular case. Okay, so this is another case. This is one case, and this is the next case. Recently, it has come to the hospital. Age 7 years, female intact, no annual vaccination. Treated for the last 10 days by practicing Bedford anorexia and high temperature. And the animal is very dull, depressed, anorexia, vomiting, scanty feces, dark stools, swollen lymph nodes, slight icterus. You can see swollen lymph nodes also. Okay, this particular case, a report from the BLD, that is a veterinary laboratory diagnosis in the River campus. We have seen HP is very low, PCB is also low, PLC count is okay, 9,000 cells, but neutrophils are extremely high, 85%. Lymphocytes you see 9, monocytes are 4%. When you find a monocyte in increased levels, you know, you need to suspect for the other things which we have done is the bilirubin, because it was a trick on the mucosa. We have found bilirubin on a higher levels, and also ALT, that is the site marker of the liver. That is what is that? We have got cholestatic markers and cellular markers. Okay, this is a alanine aminotransferase. Is the marker from the hepatic cell, cellular marker, that's 117.6. We can find a high levels of this. Of course, protein is very low. Similar case, we have seen the previous case also. So in this, we are finding higher values of the liver picture as well as the kidney picture. See the kidney values, the bunt urea nitrogen is 131, and creatinine is 8.6. So this clearly indicates that the liver and kidneys are totally damaged in this particular case. Okay, so this indicates probably this animal. We have gone for the serum analysis also. So now what is your tentative diagnosis? The animal is tentatively diagnosed for leptospirosis because it's not been immunized. It has got organ involvement. Yes, it has got the hepatic and the renal involvement. Of course, we have checked only these two organs. Of course, we are not checked for the heart and the X-rays with the, the lungs. We have not taken any X-rays. Okay, so it's only by the report we have seen that hepatic and renal is affected here. And what is the gold standard test is microscopic agglutination test. So for leptospirosis, the MAT is the most important gold standard test to diagnose the leptospirosis. And we found the titer of 1:800 Leptospira australis under the microscopic agglutination test, which clearly indicates that the animal was suffering from leptospirosis with the kidney and the liver involvement. So that's a multi-organ failure of the animal, and it is very difficult to treat also. So what exactly can be treated for leptospirosis? Early stages we can treat with some cephalosporin drugs, and later we can treat with doxycycline. That will be the best remedial measures for leptospirosis. But if the situation is going very bad, we can see that there is an increased levels of blood urea, nitrogen, and the creatinine values you can see very high. So this animal usually cannot recover with those standard therapy. We need to go for hemodialysis also. Many practitioners may not have facilities of hemodialysis. Of course, it has got only with the referral units in most of the college setup only, they are having hemodialysis. So if you have in practice hemodialysis, of course, it can be put on that, but definitely the prognosis of both these cases is not favorable. At least you can tell the owner that it should be periodically vaccinated every year for leptospirosis. That's the most important point of view that we should take it to the owners for the health of the animals. Okay. And this is the next case of case 5. So we can see a Labrador which is put on an ECG, which has got a puffed up appearance. We can see the body is totally puffed up. It is having some glistening appearance on the body also. This is a puffed up appearance which indicates that there is a vascular leak of the, the blood, that's been leaked through the endothelial cells, and it is accumulated inside the body cavity. That's why that puffiness of the body is being noticed. It's a black Labrador aged about presented in a recommend state with sudden onset of illness, anorexia, depression, puffed up appearance, breathing distress, and history of acarias. That is a tick infestation is also noticed. Temperature 104, mucous membrane is injected, heart rate 102, respiratory rate is 40. So what disease do you suspect? How do we proceed further? That is one case. This is the next case of similar type. Dalmatian pup aged about 3 months were presented with a history of not taking food and water. Developed a petechial and ecchymotic hemorrhage. We can view this a petechial and a ecchymotic hemorrhages here in the ventral abdomen. Owner removed few tests from the body. How do we proceed further? Suppose when you find such a thing, immediately the blood smear examination is most important procedure that should never be missed here. Okay. So the further investigation included thrombocyte picture of 72,000. Normally, the thrombocyte count in dogs should be at least 2 lakh cells per cubic millimeter. Okay, and the second dog is having 43,000 cells per cubic millimeter. Total leukocyte count was within limits only. Creatinine value was high in Labrador and the 3.3 milligram per deciliter. And this has been diagnosed as protozoal sepsis, which is in a severe form of sepsis. And this puppy has died within 3 days. In spite of vigorous therapy and all that, it could not sustain its life, and it died within 3 days. And Labrador died within a month in spite of treatment with a lot of therapies for different diseases, tick-borne infectious disease. We tried, but animal died. So we have taken some investigations and we found that the animal was suffering from Babesia gibsoni. Can you see this Babesia gibsoni? It's a small pathogen, small protozoa. It is being found in the RBC. We can see clearly the picture here. This is the Babesia gibsoni, small Babesia, and it's a very dangerous Babesia. Okay.
What?
Okay.
हट जाओ।
Next, we have gone with the splenomegaly. I mean, we have gone with the radiography of this animal. We could find the spleen here. See the spleen of the Labrador, it is so big. From the anterior to the posterior, it is extending. That means there is a severe extension of the spleen. There is a megaly which has happened with the spleen. And we could find on the radiography pulmonary edema with infiltration. And here we can see the spleen size is too big on ultrasound also. So this indicates that there is a organ damage, organ involvement of two parts. That the lung as well as the spleen are getting involved. Spleen usually will be involved with babesia. It's not a important notification that should be told for babesia canis or babesia gibsoni. Usually automatically it gets involved. You should find what other organs are also involved here. Okay, and for the Dalmatian pup, which died 3 days with treatment, we have done a post-mortem and you could find a spleen. You see the size of the spleen for the small puppy. It is so big, and we can see this is a liver which is severely congested and it is so big. The liver is also involved in the particular case. Of course, we didn't have the reports of the blood also for this animal. And we can see the lung. You see the lung edema. Usually it should be pale color, it should light pink color. We can see severe congestion and hemorrhage of the lung tissues. And also of the epicardium. We see the hemorrhage in the epicardium. So this clearly indicates that it's a multiple organ injury. That's why the animal could not survive even with your treatment. So always, the babesia gibsoni are very dangerous, and sometimes the animal, they act in a very improper way, to fight against the infection by the release of cytokines and all that. That's why the danger has happened to the animal. The animal, in spite of treatment, it has died. And what is the treatment for babesia gibsoni? So there is no
हो गया?
standard. There is no
चलो
standard.
बताइयो, आ जाओ।
There is no standard treatment protocol for babesia gibsoni. What we are following in India is only a lot of combinations that we are trying, because one single drug is not having effect. So, but the standard therapy, the universal therapy that they say is atopion with azithromycin at this particular dosage, but it is not found to be so much effective. Many journals say that it is, many works say that it is not found to be so effective. But this particular drug, what we are trying in Pondicherry is diaminosin acetate, that is a berynyl which is commonly been available, and followed by imidacarb. Okay, first day itself we need to give, after 1 hour we need to give imidacarb after giving this berynyl. At this particular dosage we have to follow. And from the next day onwards, we are trying clindamycin for 10 days at the dosage of 25 milligram per kg every 12 hours. So this is giving some recovery. Of course, it's not giving a complete recovery, but of course it improves the condition of the animals. In the early stage, if we diagnose it, we can improve the condition of them. If it is delayed, it can go for a very severe problem and it can die also. Other drug which we can try is bupropion with azithromycin. This is being tried in Kerala. Bupropion with azithromycin combination is being tried with Kerala with success also. The success rate, they say that is very good. And this particular combination, doxy, clinda, and metronidazole, they are trying with Chennai. Chennai people, they try the Madras Veterinary College. They try with this combination also. Doxycycline is being given as injection or orally also. Clindamycin followed by clindamycin and with the metronidazole. This combination. But what we should understand is that no single drug therapy is effective on babesia gibsoni. To diagnose babesia gibsoni, the blood smear is very, very important. Without blood smear, we cannot diagnose this. Otherwise, we need to go for PCR. PCR is a wonderful technique, but only thing is it is a little cumbersome and it is very costly also. We are not getting into daily day-to-day practice. We don't have the facility of doing diagnosis for babesia gibsoni. That's a main important lacunae in India, we can say. And the next case 6. The animal is dull and depressed. Temperature is 104, high color view. Okay, this is the only signs that been found. Dull and depressed temperature is like this. And this animal was taken a smear because temperature was high. Immediately we took the smear. We found a babesia canis. Can you see the babesia canis? It is a very big organism, but not very dangerous organism. It's not so dangerous as babesia gibsoni. And the incidence of babesia canis is also quite less. when compared to Babesia gibsoni. We get lot of Babesia gibsoni cases. Almost 80 to 90% of cases of dogs suffer from Babesia gibsoni when compared to Babesia canis. Among the Babesia, gibsoni is most common, and treatment is also very, very effective with the diaminosin acetonate, just one shot. Berenil. If you want, you can give it after 24 hours or after 1 week. You can try again diaminosin acetonate. Okay. Then imidacarb is 6.6 milligram per kg intramuscular or subcutaneous. Only thing we need to pre-treat with atropine sulfate, because there will be some effects of this imidacarb. It produces a lot of salivation and all that. No, that's why we try with atropine sulfate. Just pre-treated with that, and after 10 minutes we need to give imidacarb. Along with that, NSAIDs and supporting. The animal is becoming very, very weak and anemic. We need to go for blood transfusion also. And next dog, this last but one case, case 7. So this is a German Shepherd, which has been showing epistaxis. You can see the entire area being stained with the blood because unilateral epistaxis is being found in this animal. That's the main complaint of it also. And it is a German Shepherd. So when you see German Shepherd breeds, immediately epistaxis, unilateral, immediate thought should come to Ehrlichia. Okay, so this is a 2-year-old German Shepherd with previous history of acariasis, unilateral epistaxis, and lymphomagaly. Temperature is slightly higher, heart rate is also high, respiratory rate within limits. WBC, this is the most important finding with Ehrlichia chronic cases. If it is single infection with Ehrlichia, this will be the finding. 2,850 cells. I told you normally it should be 6,000 to 18,000. But you see the WBC picture is so less, 2,850. And DLC, you can see a alteration. Neutrophils is 43, lymphocytes is 53, and monocytes is 4. Okay, platelet count, you see, this is also very less. So this neutrophil lymphocyte ratio, you see the alteration. Neutrophil should be at least 65 to 70, but here you see very less. Lymphocytes also is slightly higher. It should be only 35, but here you see 53. This is the study taken up by Dr. Abhirami. She is a associate professor of medicine department of Puducherry. She has conducted a retrospective studies on 10,000 cases of animals that's been reported to Pondicherry hospital, and she had taken a lot of cases found positive for Ehrlichia. She could find this particular alteration, and this is a finding noticed by her, and we don't find in any textbooks also. So this gives a very, very important clue for diagnosis at the field level, because many a time we don't get Ehrlichia in the blood smear. Very rarely we get. We don't get at all. Only PCR only is very effective to identify the particular disease. So this is a very important picture which gives a clue for your diagnosis also. This please take up for the practitioners. I really insist, the DLC, but it should be done manually only, not automatic. Automatic will not give a clear picture. Only manually, if you do it, you will find definitely alteration in chronic forms of Ehrlichia. Why I am insisting is that, in India, the most common problem is tick-borne disease, and most important tick-borne disease is Ehrlichia. And the next important tick-borne disease is Babesia gibsoni. Okay, that's why I give so much importance for this particular case. And BUN, you see, 96, creatinine is 4.2, total proteins is like this. And you see globulin is also very high when compared to albumin. Ratio is very high when compared to the albumin globulin ratio. Okay, so what is the tentative diagnosis? It is canine monocytic ehrlichiosis is the one important suspicion of this particular case. And any organ involvement, definitely there is renal involvement as well as coagulation defects are also noticed because there is epistaxis. Of course, your PT, that is a prothrombin time and activated partial thromboplastin time also will get affected here. And diagnostic test for confirmation is mainly the PCR. Of course, this is another important lacunae for the practicing vets, because we don't have the PCR technique for diagnosing, readily diagnosing Ehrlichia and the Babesia. So now what is the treatment plan? So we find this, you see the morula of this Ehrlichia. Okay, you can see the morula of EKS here, right? Monocyte, you can find the morula. So this is a very confirmative diagnosis. And another animal which is recently been reported, very recently it's been reported to hospital, is a Polish dog, unable to walk, not taking feed, very dull, depressed. Temperature was only 104, lymph nodes is swollen. This is the only complaint they have found. But animal is not able to walk. Immediately we took blood, and immediately we checked it. The HB was 2 grams. PCV was 14 and TLC, you see the TLC picture, neutrophil picture and alteration also we can find this picture. Neutrophil is 46, okay. So we can find Ehrlichia canis. You can see this picture, Ehrlichia canis in this animal also. So immediately what we did, we did a blood transfusion from the healthy donor, from the same police dog kennel. We took another dog and we could collect the blood and we have given some around 350 ml from a donor and slowly we have took around some 8 hours. The internees, no, they were staying there and took care the entire day. From morning 10 o'clock, we went to 5 o'clock, very drop by drop because the HB is so low, we cannot give it very fast also. We made it very slow and it was over by almost around 5 o'clock in the evening. Right. So after that, we have checked it, but HB is also not very much improved. Why it is not improving? PCV is 24 and TLC is increased. But abundant creatinine value is also normal. Okay, we found abundant creatinine. It's a very good thing. Anyway, animal has to improve. Why this HB is not improving is mainly because bone marrow suppression. Because in Ehrlichia, there is immune mediated reaction. Okay, that is going to suppress the bone marrow. However much you give the blood, it may sometimes not improve unless otherwise you give a proper treatment for Ehrlichia. So Ehrlichia treatment is not all of a sudden. We don't have single drug therapy. We have a drug which need to be given for many days. So now what is the treatment for Ehrlichia? So the first choice of Ehrlichia treatment is doxycycline at the dose of 5 per kg for 28 days along with the glucocorticoids. When to choose glucocorticoids? That is the prednisolone is best choice 0.5 milligram per kg. Whenever there is chronic ehrlichiosis, say epistaxis, or the blood is going very badly because of immune mediated reaction, only this is happening. That's why to interfere with the immune mediated reaction, we need to give prednisone. Then platelet activators. A lot of platelet activators are now available in the market. That is herbal preparations are there. Thrombofit is available. Blood supporters. We can give a hemab, then dexorange, all those blood supporters as a tonic. We can give it. IF, there is one preparation called as intravenous preparation for iron dextron. That is also now beautifully working. That can also be tried mixed with diluted with the DNS and can be given IV slowly. And you can give oral antacids because you are giving doxycycline. It produces esophagitis and gastritis. To overcome that, we can give oral antacids also. You can give sucralfate as well as you can give pantoprazole. And the most importantly, tick control is the effective way, because all this we do it and then again it's been bitten by a tick. It is going to again relapse. The infection is going to relapse. So the tick control effective is very important. Another trial we have done with the chloroquine tablets also. This also we can try doxycycline plus chloroquine. Chloroquine that Larioga tablets are available for human. That can also be tried at the dose rate of 2.5 milligram per kg in 3 divided doses. Okay, with the same supporters, we will be having some effect on Ehrlichia. But chronic cases probably do not improve so well, but it needs a long-term treatment for treating this particular problem. Okay. Now, it's about the case, general point for severe sepsis to septic shock. How come we can go about cases to be treated with severe sepsis to septic shock? The most important points to be noted is the airway, breathing, circulation, and ABC. These 4 things should be done effectively. Airway is properly, you are producing an airway by putting an endotracheal tube in a collapsing patient. And breathing can be effectively done with the oxygen therapy. Then circulation we can done with the fluids and degrees is to manage the temperature of the animal. Right, you can give a warm when the animal is very, very cold. No, it is feeling cold, 99 or 98 degrees. Immediately it should be moved to a warm place so that we can keep it up. And the support with the oxygen is the most important when the partial pressure of oxygen, with the pulse oximeter, when you check it, when it goes below 80 mmHg, immediately you should be supported with oxygen. And the hemodynamic support can be done with crystalloids, with or without colloids. And ideal crystalloid for any septic patient is Ringer's lactate. We should not choose any other therapy. We can choose Ringer's lactate or MES, multiple electrolyte solution. That is also available in the market. And to be given at the dose rate of 90 ml per kg IV because the animal is in a very bad shape, So we need to give at a high dose of 90 ml per kg body weight, and the colloid which we can choose is Hetastat 10 ml per kg. Blood transfusion is advised when the PCV falls below 20%. And albumin is supported because in all patients of sepsis, we can find very low levels of albumin because the liver is also affected, and there is also movement of albumin from the endothelial spaces of the capillary vasculature through the vasculature. No, the albumin, because there is leakage of albumin. When the endothelial cells are damaged in sepsis, it is going to be low, below 1.5 grams per deciliter. We can choose this support for albumin. I will show you the photograph also. And the intravenous antibiotics is empirical. It is also by your choice with your experience. You know, you can choose the antibiotics, antiemetics, anti-inflammatory drugs, and vasopressors. When to use vasopressors for your treatment? So catecholamine, the main important effect of vasopressor, you know, it mainly constrict the blood vessels. What happens in sepsis is there is dilation of the blood vessels. That's why there is leakage of this albumin and through the endothelial cells, and it's a major cause for the puffiness of the skin also. Don't think that the dog is looking very healthy. It's mainly because of the puffiness nature. It's mainly due to the damage to the endothelial cells, which is going to cause leakage of this albumin through the endothelial cells and causes this puffiness. So whenever there is like that, you know, constrict the blood vessels, we can choose vasopressor. So what is the best vasopressor that we can choose is the noradrenaline. It's the noradrenaline which we can choose it. Okay, and the dose rate is very, very important, 0.2 to 3.3 micrograms. And it cannot be given in a small practicing, say, without any provisions. It should be with the intensive care rate or the continuous rate infusion, you know, that should be managed properly. Critically, it should be looked upon. The case should be looked upon very critically because it is highly dangerous also to use this vasopressor in a normal setup without any provisions. And next is glucocorticoids. This prevents the recurrence of ARDS. That's the main reason why even in COVID patients, you know, they are choosing glucocorticoids to prevent the occurrence of ARDS in severe sepsis. The same thing happens, endothelial damage. There is a leakage of fluid from the blood vasculature inside the pulmonary alveoli. That's the alveoli, you know, all being filled with the fluid. So that's why glucocorticoids are being chosen as a last resort in cases of sepsis to prevent the occurrence of ARDS in any form. So this is our last. So I thank the Dean Ramkumar sir, who has given me a chance, you know, to speak to the audience. He's a Dean of River. He has only given me a lot of support. He had introduced me to Dr. Ramamurthy sir. Only with both these people, you know, I was able to present this particular topic. I just because it's a very interesting topic. Every veterinarian should be aware of it. So thanks to Dr. Ramkumar sir and thanks to Dr. Ramamurthy sir and Mohit Gupta because and Rajan Meki. They are very instrumental and they have supported me with this topic. And I thank Dr. Suresh Kumar Pillai also because of his motivation only. I just immediately agreed for this, and then he's organizing secretary for Kerala practitioners. I thank wholeheartedly Dr. Suresh Kumar Pillai also, and I thank all the organizers. I thank my mentors, mainly my teachers, you know, Dr. Pratap, Srinivasan sir, Dr. Nambi sir, Dr. Tirunavakarasi sir, who are all, without them, I am not here in this position. Thank you one and all my faculty of my medicine department also. Thank you so much. If you have any queries, you know, you can just ask me. Whatever is possible, I will make it from my side also. Thank you so much.
So it was wonderful to listen to you, ma'am. Thank you so much. With so much of request, ma'am, you have given us so much precious time for this webinar. Ma'am, there are many veterinarians from southern part of India. They requested for this webinar, ma'am. So that's the reason we requested you for the same, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, there are many question and answers, many queries, ma'am. So, if you allow me, can I speak something about my our product Cellpet for 10 minutes?
Yeah, please.
Later we can take a queries, ma'am, if you allow us.
Yeah, please. Please
Yes,
carry
ma'am.
on.
Ma'am, please. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm giving my presentation for Celpet. It's an oxygen mineral supplement. It's a product of USA. So, yeah. इसी को लो, इसी। Yeah. ये नहीं है इसमें। ये तो है ना। So it's an Enchantrix organic. It's running. Why? It's an Enchantrix Organic Private Limited. So it's a power of oxygen. It's a liquid, highly concentrated, super energized colloidal mineral nutritious supplement, which you have to add in few drop in the water. It's made up of natural plant source mineral nutrients, electrolytes in iodine colloidal suspension. There is no alcohol, no glucose, and it's a highly concentrated, super energized colloidal nutritious supplement. Proprietary formulation, no animal aquatic ingredients, not a medicine. It's a fit for animal consumption. So you have to add few drop in the water, and it's a unique and amazing manner by supplying pets with essential nutrients, elements, and minerals. Celpet again. Oh, what's it? It's a normal water molecule in bloodstream. So when you put Celpet in the water molecule splits. H2O split into H plus ions, O minus ions, and later when it go inside from mouth, throat, esophagus, the water molecule into one negatively charged oxygen atom and two positively charged hydrogen atoms. So the oxygen atom negatively charged, it attracted to positively charged positive free radical that form oxygen. And through respiratory process, the usable oxygen can now bond with a waste element that forming, it's called wastage, free radical, carbon dioxide, which the body can expel naturally. So cryonically excited enable the minute particles to assimilate directly into the cells, and 95% nutrients are absorbed into the animal's bloodstream. So it's a Dr. Everett L. Story, who is a genius scientist who has invented hydrogen nuclear bomb first time in the world. Okay, so there is no side effect. So it's acting as an oxygen therapy in the body, increases cellular respiration, natural antibiotic, energy boosting properties, helping deeply detoxifying the body, metabolic efficiency catalyst, balances body metabolism, powerful free radicals conjunct with the increment dissolved oxygen in the blood. It produces extraordinary results by preventing atherosclerosis. So there are benefits of Celpet. We have different variants of Celpet. Enhanced pet well-being is used for skin problems, for wound, for skins, for even it helps you in epilepsy also. It reduces the epilepsy, the frequency of the epilepsy. Any female, it improves the lactation, body balances mass, enhances optimal body functions. Immune booster, it reduces stress, joint problems, it protects from parasitic infection in like parvo, distemper, tick fever, joint problems. Junior is for puppy, their growth and development. kidney activator, any kidney problems, any chronic and chronic acute. So it increases urine output, balances electrolytes, reduces lactic and uric acid buildup. For aquatic, it brings up natural color, glossiness of fish, helps in fighting bacterial virus infection, dissolve oxygen levels. For birds, it reduces distress, disease mortalities, it strengthens immune system. It works very well in birds. For mammal, there's a mammal for rabbits and guinea pigs. Smoothing respiratory function, helps in fighting bacterial infections, maintain general well-being, and reduces stress. So there's in Celpet, the main ingredient is a lithothamnium calcareum, which you find in deep ocean. They extract cryogenically. It's not done chemically. It's being extracted seaweed, and 70 main elements minerals they are there in Celpet, and every ingredient they have their own percentage, own formulation. So for Celpet, like ma'am, even thank you so much, ma'am. You even told about Celpet immune booster, that it really helps. So why it has to be given, it has to be increased slowly, because you have to make a acceptability with the pet. Like when you give food, you give like 1/4 portion, half portion, 3/4 portion, full portion. Like when you're giving the Celpet, you should increase the dosage every day, so the pet accepts Celpet very easily. So it's there already I'm very happy to tell, like Celpet also helps, can be used orally, like what I mentioned you, and can be used topically also. Topically, you have to mix few drop in whatever as per your treatment, you're using any cream, any aqueous cream, any antifungal cream. So when you mix Celpet, the best, the effect is absorbed in the skin as a nutrient particle. These particles are negatively charged ionic-lights, positively charged membrane of the skin, which is absorbed in the bloodstream and assimilate in the mitochondria of the skin. And the remaining cream infected area moist and prevent water and germs from entering the body and resulting faster healing. The Celpet can be given inside and as well as outside. So there's some testimonials. I just want to share some testimonials with you. Can you show me that? Oh, sorry. कैसे होगा? ये खोले ना, ये खोले स्लाइड शो. इसको बंद नहीं हो रहा ना. स्लाइड शो बंद करिए, बंद कर दीजिए. So this is a part where the Celpet was given to him. It was a very chronic infection, which Celpet was applied topically in mixing the betadine and given orally to drink in the water. We saw him after 5 days, and again 5 days. In 15 days, a lot of very good recovery saw in him. There was a dog with a skin problem. The Celpet was given orally. It was a case in Gujarat, in Anand University. The Celpet given orally, and in 3 months we can see a lot of very good improvement. He came back to normal. So again, I'm very happy to. So case 3, there was a dog there was a skin problem on the tail. The tail. It was very painful. Whenever he sits on the ground, it really very painful. The Celpet was used topically and orally both ways on the affected area, and within span of 10 days, it was healed completely. So it's a chronic skin problem. You can see here, it's a pug. And within Selped was used topically, orally, both ways. So with Selped, in 18 days, a lot of improvement. It was very happy to see him, very good improvement, remarkable improvement. So again, there was a skin problem. She's a female, and it's a chronic problem, suffering for last many months. And with Selped given orally and topically both ways, you can see in 1 month there was a lot of improvement was seen in her. This was a case. It's a canine atopic dermatitis, which is a very big. Many they have a problem, and it takes a lot of time to recover. With Selped, in 10 days, they have seen very good recovery. That was this happened in Gwalior. So this is from Hyderabad. The treatment was Selped enhanced, and with Selped there was a patch, and Selped was used topically, orally, both ways. And in 3 months, it was suffering for last 3 months, and within 10 days you can see the improvement. It has really helped him. So this was in Calicut, Kerala. There was a dog, the dog was very badly suffering from the skin problem. You can see on the screen. So with Selped, it really helped. It was used topically, orally, both ways. And within a fraction of a month, there was a lot of 100% recovery. You can see like this was before, and after a month, this was after. And there was a remarkable, you can see it's a remarkable improvement. Yes. Again, I'm very happy to introduce. There was a problem. This was a tumor, and the veterinarian, he did a surgery and he removed 3 kg of tumor, and due to this, after the surgery, the extensive subcutaneous tissue was developed, and later Selped was used topically, orally, both ways. You can see this. Selped was used, and in 2 months, there was 100% healing. So again, it's a last case. So it's a day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 7, day 10. Within 10 days, there was a lot of improvement, and that was really helped Selped topically, orally, both ways. So thank you for giving so much of precious time. And Selped is a veterinary product. Selped for canine, for dogs and cats. It's not available online, no pet shops. It's only available only through veterinaries. And we are very happy to be associated with the veterinarians. Thank you. Ma'am,
Yes.
and we can, ma'am, please. Thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to hear. Ma'am, now can we start the queries, ma'am? Question and answer, ma'am, please.
Yeah, if you have questions, I'm ready to answer.
Ma'am, if you can, how can, ma'am, like, so ma'am, can I open everyone for question queries, ma'am?
Yeah, definitely.
Ma'am, so I can open everyone. So anyone can question, ma'am. Unmute कर दो सबको. ऐसे नहीं कर सकते. नहीं ऐसे नहीं. Yeah, asked all to unmute. So everyone, and please be specific. Everyone, like slowly we can start with the queries.
Paragliding, skydiving, because I really wanted to be the best of my childhood.
And this would not be, ma'am. That could not be possible, ma'am. So what we do, ma'am? Here there's a chat, ma'am. So many they can ask, they can raise the query and you answer them, ma'am. Hello.
अरे हाँ वो लगा था हमने देखा था अभी
You talk.
Is this or under the legs it is used?
Ma'am,
Hello.
ma'am, there's a chat, so they can anyone who want to know anything, ma'am. They can any query. You read the question and answer it, ma'am. All right. So, so somebody asked like how to treat babesia and puppies, ma'am, regarding bone marrow suppression. So there's a chat, ma'am.
Yeah. So babesia in puppies. Anyway, in any species of animals, it's quite dangerous only. Babesia in puppies is the same treatment that holds good for that also. Only thing is we need to go for a blood checkup. Then try to find out what is the thrombocyte count and the blood picture, the TLC picture as well as the hemoglobin. What are all the levels we need to check it. And after that, we need to go for any standard treatment protocol only. We need to start with Berenil. Even puppies, almost around 1 month of age, when it's been affected with Babesia gibsoni transplacentally, when it got the infection, we are treating with diaminosin acetate and we got a wonderful result also with that, followed by azithromycin. So now what we have tried is diaminosin acetate with azithromycin combination and got some effect. It was having some good effect on the animal.
You can call.
From the
Sir,
nearby
you
veterinarians from the state
you
level.
can.
Call me. कॉल कर लो ना अपना नंबर दो ना सेव करोगे नंबर
नहीं आई veterinarian.
Hello. Hello, can you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yeah.
audible, ma'am. Yes.
please raise your hand and
Ma'am, so I request everyone, they can raise their hands and write the query, ma'am, or we can unmute. Raise the hand, we'll unmute.
But otherwise, you can unmute for everybody, no? You can unmute for everybody whoever
Ma'am,
wants.
if
They
you
can ask the
unmute
question.
everyone, ma'am, if you unmute
Yeah.
everyone, we can't, it will be very much kiosk, ma'am.
Okay.
So this Dr. You know.
So one person is asking, what is the price of Selpet? Can you tell me the price of Selpet?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it's a 10 ml Selpet, 10 ml, 499 rupees. It's a
Yeah.
MRP, ma'am.
Dr. Prithviraj
Yes, ma'am.
has asked a question, what is the price of Selpet? So it is 499 rupees for 10 ml of...
10 ml, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, okay.
MRP, ma'am. So,
somebody has asked, ma'am, can we use DNS during fever in dogs? There's one question. See, first of all, you should find out what is the cause of fever. But of course, DNS can be used to a certain extent, very little. If the animal is anorectic, definitely we can use DNS to reduce the temperature. But most importantly, we need to find out what is the cause for fever. And accordingly, we need to initiate the treatment for the fever. Suppose it is Ehrlichia or babesia or unusual fever or fever due to unknown cause, you need to give the appropriate therapy. Suppose it is due to unknown cause, we can give meloxicam, right? You can reduce the temperature, and after that, if the animal is still anorectic, we can go for DNS. Try to find out whether the animal is dehydrated or not. The animal is dehydrated, naturally we need to give some fluid support. Fluid support can be with DNS and RL also. A combination of multiple electrolyte solution can also be given. There is no issue about it. It's not going to increase the temperature. It's going to lower the temperature only. It will not. Many people have the idea that fluids is being given in fever, it is going to cause some unusual effects. It is not going to cause effect, but try to identify the cause of fever and treat for the appropriate cause for the fever. Now, apart from that, this DNS is going to be helpful because in Ehrlichia, we are giving oxytetracycline mixed with the DNS and we are giving it slowly IV. There is no danger about it. But don't give unusually high doses of DNS. Okay. Somebody has asked dose of meropenem in septicemia cases. Meropenem is imipenem, no? That's the imipenem dosage. That's a very costly antibiotic for multiple organ involvement. You know, multi infectious agent involvement. Only we need to suggest meropenem if it is not treated with usual antibiotics. We are not choosing meropenems and all that. Usually in our veterinary practice, that's been tried only for human beings. We are not usually trying meropenems because it's quite higher rate and it's a imipenem group. Only for refractory cases, you know, when it is not responding for any bacterial sepsis, we can use meropenem. But usually it is not been accepted usually in veterinary practice. Somebody has asked whether to use antibiotic if it is having a low HP count because antibiotics cause anemia. Antibiotics force chloramphenicol, only that it causes blood dysplasia. But otherwise, antibiotics definitely is a choice when there is, say for example, Ehrlichia. Say take the example of Ehrlichia. Ehrlichia case, the antibiotic that's been used is doxycycline. Definitely, we need to use doxycycline. Without treating with the doxycycline, we cannot improve the animal. But importantly, when the HP goes very low or PCV goes below, say 15 or 20 grams per percentage, sorry, 15% or 20%, definitely first treat with a blood transfusion, then start using the antibiotic. We need to use antibiotics only. There is no problem in using antibiotics. What are the oral antacids in dogs? Anna Jarvis has asked whether what is the oral antacids to be used. Oral antacids, what we can use is sucralfate is the best oral antacid. It is available as sucralfate. And sucralfate is available in human side also. Even that you can try using as an oral antacid. What is the use of direct bilirubin detection? What is the difference between total and direct bilirubin? Okay, this is a very good question. Actually, bilirubin total and direct. First, find out what is the bilirubin total. Then, if it is very high, then check for the direct. Direct, if it is high, then we can suspect for hepatic involvement. If indirect is quite higher, we can think of any problems to the vasculature. When the vasculature, say for example, babesia, now there will be an increase in the indirect bilirubin when compared to the direct. So if it is pre-hepatic, we find indirect more. If it is hepatic or post-hepatic, we find direct being more. So that is a correct, that is a conjugated bilirubin, which is going to cause an impart yellowish coloration to the mucosa. And to the visible mucosa, we find a very severe yellowish tinge. That is mainly because of the indirect bilirubin, the direct bilirubin, which is a conjugated bilirubin. That is the main why we check for the direct and the indirect, whether there is hepatic or non-hepatic. And what is the dose rate of hetastarch? Someone has asked what is the dose rate of hetastarch? Hetastarch at any cost, don't use it alone. First use with the crystalloids. Okay, you choose the dose rate of crystalloid. It can be 20 ml per kg body weight or 30 ml per kg body weight or 40 ml or even 50 or 70 ml per kg body weight. But of course, every time when you use hetastarch, it should never be used more at a higher dose rate. It should be used only at 10 ml per kg body weight. Better that you use a 10 ml per kg body weight and use a very slow flow rate. Don't use it very fast. Use a slow flow rate. In which cases do we see increase in band cell percentage? Will there be left shift in any sepsis? What is left shift? Shift to left. What is the shift to left? What is shift to left is increase in the number of band cells is called a shift to left. So normal band cell number should be 3 up to 3 up to 4. Now we are giving a range of 5 to 10. We can go up to 10 also. We are leaving the chance. If the band cells are going very high, then it is very dangerous. That means the system is not functional. It is not becoming a mature neutrophil. All the immature neutrophils are entering into the circulation. That we call it as degenerative shift left. Degenerative. It is not regenerative. So this animal will be in a very, very pathetic state. Actually, the animal will be in a very pathetic state, and treatment will be very difficult also to do with. So that's why the band cell number is very important. More the band cells, the less will be the survivability of the animal. Band cell number of more than 10, say you see 15 band cells in the circulation, then it is little dangerous. We call it as a degenerative shift to left. That is in the surrendering phase of shock or sepsis. Almost in animal in a sepsis shock state only, the band cell number will be increased. And usually this type of band cell increase usually is associated with the bacterial infection, not usually with the protozoal infection. Usually it is being viewed with the bacterial infection. This is very well appreciated in the bovine practice. In bovine practice with peritonitis, acute diffuse peritonitis, usually it's very difficult to diagnose also. Pericarditis, traumatic pericarditis in the last stages, you can find band cell number which is more in number, and that indicates a degenerative shift to left. And can babesia cause abortion in pregnant animals? Of which drug should use in pregnant to treat babesia? One question is there. It's a good question only. Can babesia cause abortion in pregnant animal? So definitely any infection, animal can go in for abortion at any point. We cannot say it very definitely. Animal is going to cause abortion, but early stage, if we are treating at the right stage, it is not going to. It may cause. It may not cause abortion. Also, it can subsequently move on to the last stages. It can even give a good puppies also. And what is the drug that should be used to pregnant animals to treat babesia? Actually, we should know what type of babesia first. Whether it is babesia gibsoni or babesia canis. Babesia canis is very easy to treat because in babesia canis, there are 3 types of babesia. The whole world, we have 3 types of babesia canis. Babesia canis canis, babesia canis vogeli, babesia canis rosei. This rosei is seen in Africa. Very dangerous organism. Usually it causes mortality. When babesia canis is seen in European countries. Whereas in India, we are seeing babesia canis vogeli. It's a very, very minute, very we can say very ordinary pathogen. It's not going to cause so much effect. Just diaminosin acetate will have a good effect. But diaminosin acetate can be given for pregnant animals or not is your question. If you want to save the animal, if you want to save the puppies, you just leave it. If you want to save the animal, then definitely we need to treat for babesia canis if it is very severe parasitemia. If the parasitemia is very severe, naturally we need to treat with diaminosin acetate or imidacloprid. And imidacloprid will be the best choice. And compared to diaminosin, imidacloprid will be the best choice for babesia canis. Ma'am, beside babesiosis and ehrlichiosis, which cases do we find thrombocytopenia? Thrombocytopenia in immune-mediated thrombocytopenic reactions, when there is infectious cause caused by any pathogen. Immune-mediated, if it is going to cause an immune-mediated reaction, at times it can cause suppression of the bone marrow. Even in such conditions, we can find a thrombocytopenia, immune-mediated thrombocytopenia. In those cases, we need to treat with the steroids, corticosteroids. And use prednisolone, orally tablets can be given or injectables also can be given. How can we cure parvo test? How can we cure parvo test? Cure parvo using CellPET. CellPET is an immune booster, It is reactive oxygen species harvester. It harvests the reactive oxygen species. That's how it is going to improve the immunity, and it can be useful as one of the auxiliary treatment for paro. But definitely for parvovirus, the treatment is supportive using fluids. We can use parvo cure tablets, and we can use Selpet also. Additionally, these are all some of the supportives that we can make it. We can make all these things supportive. Hypodynamic cases and hypotension cases differently diagnosis. Hypodynamic cases and hypotension. In hypodynamic cases, definitely there will be hypotension. Hypodynamic case. I don't exactly hyperdynamic and hypodynamic phase. Actually, that's a phase. In hypodynamic phase of endotoxemia or sepsis, naturally you will find hypotension. What is hypotension? Reduced perfusion. That is no blood flow to the periphery. That is called as hypotension. In human beings, how we diagnose this using a blood pressure machine. That is a sphygmomanometer. But here in veterinary, we don't have a pakka blood pressure monitor. Right, that we use it with the CRT, capillary refill time can be checked to find out the perfusion of the animal. Perfusion of the blood, the blood flow to the peripheries can be checked by capillary refill time. And we have a blood pressure machines available, but not much useful for veterinary practice because size of the animals differs, and we don't have a correct values for dogs, systolic and diastolic values, Of course, we use it in different hospitals. In referral clinics, they are using blood pressure monitors also. Ma'am, beside babesiosis, that I have told you, and babesia cause abortion. What is the dose of Etopostat? Any more questions, sir? Any more questions?
Ma'am, so ma'am, thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Really,
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity also.
yes,
Again,
ma'am.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll upload, ma'am. We'll upload this video on YouTube, ma'am. So it will be beneficial for everyone, ma'am. Enchantrix Organic, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you.
Alright. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.